Among the towering majesties of the Himalayas, down the verdant valleys, there lay a country well known from border to border for affluence and tranquility. The ruler of that land, King Mahasattva, was a matchless, wisdom-compassion monarch, his people adjoining him, for his reign had been marked by fairness and prosperity. But with all that success, King Mahasattva was looking for something deeper than a mere comprehension of life's secrets. He believed that true enlightenment lay beyond the clamor of the royal court and the complexities of governance. One day, while meditating in the tranquility of his royal garden, a profound realization dawned upon him. He realized how often the greatest wisdom lies in the power of silence. He became impatient to carry this insight forward and check the correctness with the courtiers and subjects, and so he challenged. He announced that the person who could express the power of silence without speaking a word would be given a chest of precious gems as a reward. And soon, word of this king's challenge to the understanding of silence spread through the kingdom like wildfire and literally set the imaginations of everybody on fire. Very soon, the palace courtyard was filled with people of all walks of life, each one ready to exhibit their understanding of silence. The first to try an interpretation was the most respected musician in the kingdom. He plucked just one note on his veena, and the air seemed filled, not with the most crystal pure resonance, filled with overtones so full they seemed to partake of the very essence of silence. The note lingered, fading into the ether, leaving a profound stillness in its wake. The next was a renowned painter who brought in his painting of the moonlit Himalayas. It was bathed in ethlight, and the mountains showed a majestic silence that said much more. So did the audience, but now, certainly, it was to hear the silence of snow-glazed peaks. And one poet came forth with a blank scroll cupped in his hands, almost as though he were asking the king to fill it up with a description. In that gesture, there were no words, no intent to fill the scroll up with a description. The court replied appreciatively to his cleverness. It was the case, then, of the sun. Humble was the monk, dressed in simple robes, who made his way to the very center of the courtyard, bearing not a thing, saying not a word, doing not a deed. He simply stood, his presence calm and serene, emitting stillness. And they went silent as he stood, watching the monk who, in his silence, spoke a piece speaking through each person present. King Mahasattva watched each performance with great interest. The creativity and the depth of understanding that his subjects displayed while they performed moved his heart. But it was the silent performance by the monk that struck a chord deep inside of him. As night enveloped the kingdom, the king rose from his throne, his voice clear and resonant in the hushed courtyard. Today we have witnessed the many facets of silence. King Mahasattva began, his gaze resting on the monk. Every performance was a lived example of the wit and wisdom of the people. Yet it is the monk who really drew the spirit of silence, for in his quietness, he has shown us that it is not just the lack of sound. He has presented silence as a deep presence, a source of calmness and comprehension that directly holds with the soul. The crowd roared its approval, their hearts elated with what the king had expressed and what the monk had shown. The monk was calm, wearing a smile on his lips that only reflected taking the king's praise with silent modesty. The monk approached the sinner, and in his hands, he was holding out his chest filled with precious gems. However, before he could offer the reward, the monk gently declined, speaking from his eyes that he did not come for the treasures. "Your Majesty," said the monk at last, in a clear and soft, very soft but clear voice. The very silence, the comprehension and experience of it alone is the greatest reward. Use this chest full of gems for the welfare of the kingdom and for those in need. Touched by the monk's selflessness, King Mahasattva declared that indeed, the chest of gems would be used for the betterment of the kingdom. He added that this was the place where they could find a sanctuary of silence, where any could come and escape from all the unrest of the world, finding peace within themselves. The story of the might of silence went beyond the realms of the kingdom. It was a kind of story in which one could hear an echo through the centuries. It tells the lesson of what true wisdom and peace dwell in, not in the clatter of the world, but in the silence of the heart, a lesson for all times and places.